Now, Transnet workers are forging ahead with their strike as trade unions meet today with the entity and the CCMA over wage negotiations. For more on this, we're joined by Amanda Tsemese, SATAWU Head of Communications. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. Perhaps bring us up to speed on where you're standing when it comes to your demands and the negotiation process.
A very good afternoon to you, Tumpo, and to your viewers at home. I can confirm that today we have officially embarked on a strike that is protected and legal. At this point, we are meeting with the employer and we are joined by the Minister of Labour, Minister Newzroom. Is also part of the meeting. Basically today we are discussing picketing rules that, that were supposed to have been signed last Friday, but unfortunately the employer refused to sign the picketing rules. So today we are discussing the picketing rules and we are hoping that by the end of the day both parties would have signed the picketing rules. And we want to say that even though the employer refused to sign the picketing rules on Friday, but that did not stop us, as today we have seen our members and workers picketing outside Transnet premises in all the provinces, and we are quite happy with the number.
So looking at the strike while in action, perhaps give us more clarity on some of your demands.
Paul, you would remember that we started these negotiations with the employer in May, and we had 3 sessions with the employer. In our first session, we tabled our demand of 13% increment. The employer then said they cannot meet our demands because they do not have enough capacity and the entity does not have enough money to meet those demands. We then moved from our initial demand of 13% to 12% to say, okay, we hear you that you do not have enough money, but let's now negotiate around 12%. But even with us moving from 13 to 12%, the employer still refused to come to the table, and we then asked the commissioner who was facilitating the process to issue a certificate of demand a certificate of dispute that would then be giving us a go-ahead to go with the strike that is legal and protected. And then last week, the employer came with a new offer. They call it a revised offer, but there's nothing revised in that offer because the employer is now offering us 3%. We rejected the 3% because we feel like it's an insult, and the employer knows very well that the current inflation rate in this country, it is 7.6%.
Is that where you would be willing to settle if the offer of 7.3% be put on the table?
Well, as a union, we take mandate from our members and workers. So at this point, the mandate from our people is very clear that you do not accept anything below the current inflation rate. So I cannot say to the public that we are willing to settle for this or not. The employer must just come to the table with a better offer. We take the offer to our members for consultation, our members, on whether to accept the new offer or not.
So perhaps what informs your 12% demand? I mean, it must come with some substance after the employer was not able to carry forward your 13% demand.
Well, the employer, they refused, as I was saying to you. But one of the things that we tabled to the employer is that we also need our members to be back paid as from the 1st of April 2022. And even though with that demand, the employer turned it down, saying that they will not be able to do that, and they then offered us a lump sum of 7,600 rand that is going to be payable in the next financial year. We also rejected that because we do believe that there's actually money at Transnet, and as a responsibility, it is our as a union, it is also our responsibility to make sure that we fight for our members, because cost of living is too high in this country.
So the strike action today, of course, it has a massive dent on the country's already limping economy. South Africa is said to be risking an economic collapse. The strike hitting ports with billions of rands on the line. What is your response and feeling around that?
It is very unfortunate that it's not only us and our members that are going to be negatively affected by the strike, but the country as a whole, because you'd know that as we speak, as a country, our economy is struggling, but it was not our priority to go on strike because we've given the employer a platform to avoid the strike, because we knew the consequences of going on a strike. We knew that it means losing billions of rands, but unfortunately the employer pushed us to this corner that we're currently in, and unfortunately there's nothing we can do about it, because we tried to prevent the strike, but unfortunately the employer was just too arrogant to meet us halfway.
So what are you hoping to be the outcome of your meeting with the employer and CCMA as you try and iron a way forward?
We're actually hoping that the employer could table a better offer, something that is more reasonable for us to take to our members to avoid the continuation of the strike. We're also hoping that by the end of the day in this meeting that we're currently in, we are able to discuss and to sign the picketing rules to avoid violence and chaos in and around the employer's premises. So we are hoping that today we are at least able to discuss the picketing rules and for the employer to come back to us with a new offer. So
do you imagine that should that not be the case, that it could trigger violence and chaos?
Not that we are imagining that, but just to avoid it, we then thought it would be a good thing that we have those picketing rules, because the picketing rules, basically, they are also protecting our members. For an example, maybe one of the rules in those rules could be that you are not allowed to picket inside the premises of the employer, and that you need to be maybe 200 meters away from the picketing area, which is the premises of the employer. So we're not really saying we are anticipating violence, but we are doing things right through the bargaining council.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time. Amanda Tsemese, SATAWU Head of Communication, speaking to the developments around this massive strike.